Here's the question, is it a delay tactic or a genuine timeline? Welcome to the skill of being able to manage a great pipeline. If you're going to be a phenomenal agent, what we know is that ultimately you need to have plenty of listings. And sometimes you're going to be out there and you're going to be prospecting. You're going to be working through lots of people at market appraisals, you're going to be having conversations with them, but what's actually the timeline that they're really working towards? Now, ultimately, when I work with agents, and particularly those that are newer to industry, they get a lot of delay tactics. They get people that are like, we're 3 months off, we're 6 months off, we're 9 months off, we're 12 months off. And I always say to agents, what actually happened to all those people that were 3, 6, 9, or 12 months ago, saying that they were 3, 6, 9, 12 months away from selling? And what we identify straight away, they kind of go blue in the face and they're like, well, I don't know. And what we actually find out is that they really lose touch with that particular pipeline. Your skill is to understand what are the hypothetical questions that you can use that will test where the client's at, so then you can have a better quality conversation. So I just want to ask you a quick question. It's about when you sell or when you settle. So if I had someone today that wanted to buy today, that wanted a long settlement, what would you do then? If I had someone who wanted to buy your property today and would allow you to lease it back, what would you do then? If I had someone who just paid a great price, would you consider ultimately moving now? And this is that interesting thing about what have you got to do to ultimately unlock the door to allow the client to go and make that decision to do it today. That's really what a great agent is always in the business of. You're in the position of creating opportunities to allow people to go and do it now. You're giving them confidence by something that they might need to see, feel, or experience. And maybe they might need to go and have a look at another property that ultimately they could go and buy. Or maybe they need to be in a position they need to get their finance organized. Or maybe they ultimately need to get their partner through so they can have that proper conversation around why now is the right time for them to be doing something at a property level. What is really important here for you as an individual is to make that decision to become phenomenally great around what it is that you do. And when you think about a pipeline, it needs regular review. Now, what I normally do with an agent is I say, okay, great, let's write down the heading for last month. And now what I want you to do is I want you to write down the list of every appraisal that you actually went to last month. And ultimately people are like, well, I can't remember them. And I'm like, what, you can't remember 10, 20, 30, or $40,000 opportunities? And the secret is that you can remember 1 or 2, but you won't remember maybe like 8, 9, or 10 that you actually went to. And here's where literally the rubber hits the road. How many of those people that you went to appraised were in a position that they're thinking of selling because they've got a growing family? How many are because they're getting a divorce? How many is because it's a deceased estate? How many are ultimately a developer, an investor, a job relocation? How many of those people are in a position that they need to do something because something else is going on inside of their world? Or is it purely majorly discretionary that ultimately they're just looking for the better home? They're more aspirational in their nature, or ultimately they're downsizing, and that's really the challenge. You see, most agents will go out there and they'll do phenomenal appraisals, but they'll never really work out why people are making that decision to move. The size of the problem will ultimately determine the speed to market. So imagine that you or your partner goes home tonight and says, honey, guess what? We're having triplets. Would that change everything for you? There is no way that you could probably live in the existing property that you're currently in today, and you're going to need to go and make some changes. And this is ultimately what a great real estate agent does, is that they understand that no one's situation is ultimately static. And that's why great skills around calling when there's a new listing or a sale that's been made allows you to check in and see where the client's at and see whether or not they're ready to go and do a move or a transaction today. And when you get really good at understanding the problem, that will then dictate what we're going to call the timeline. Now, let's say that we ask that question. What's the problem you're looking to solve by buying, moving, or selling? And someone ultimately says, we're having a baby. That's got a very clear timeline. What's the problem you're looking to solve by buying, moving, or selling? And we need something bigger. Why is that? Because I need somewhere to park my classic car collection. How urgent is that problem for you? Oh, well, I expect they're going to be coming in about 90 days' time. I'm going to need all the garage space by then. Now you've actually got really clear timelines to go and work with those particular people. So imagine that you literally set up like a Kanban board, right? And you say, okay, great, we've got the next 6 months lined out. Who's going to be there for August? Who's going to be there for September, October, November? And you didn't start moving people around. And you then actually go and have a look. Well, Hannah Robertson, well, she's having a baby. And Bob Smith, well, he's got a divorce. That now allows you to kind of work out how you go to follow up with those particular people, because you know exactly the situations and the challenges that they need to overcome in order to be able to go and make the decision to do it now. That's actually how you unlock a pipeline. So go on, do the challenge. Write out a list of every appraisal that you've done last month and tell me what's the reason why they're thinking of doing that transaction. Because if you can get clear on the problem, then everything will change for you in the way that ultimately you go and build an incredible business so you can list consistently, sell consistently, and enjoy consistent income.